I'm Troy Kirby with MLTnews with a quick look at the 2021 Washington State Legislative Session. House lawmakers debated for 6 hours on Engrossed Second Senate Bill 5038, which would ban open carry of weapons on the state capitol campus during protests or marches. The bill passed the Senate 2820 on February 25th, passing the House 5740 on March 28th. The bill's amendments will now be negotiated by both chambers, and if approved, the legislation will go before the governor's office for the opportunity to be signed into law.
10 years ago, my life changed forever. It was a bright, sunny morning in January in Tucson, Arizona, when a gunman opened fire on a constituent event of my boss and mentor, Congresswoman Gabby Giffords. Gabby was shot in the head. My friend and colleague, Gig Zimmerman, was killed. 2 of my colleagues, Ron and Pam, were shot, and 5 others died that day. We all know the story of Gabby's determination and grit to survive, but it wasn't until years later that I witnessed this up close myself. Gabby came to Olympia to advocate for common sense background checks for gun purchases. Many of you may remember that visit. I accompanied her that day as she walked our hallowed halls. And those halls were lined with people who were heavily armed, shouting at her as she walked by, trying to intimidate her, trying to silence her.
My daughter, like thousands of other Washingtonians, have found themselves inadvertently in the middle of a protest in the last year. People that were innocently out shopping, dining, driving, working, commuting, have found themselves on the freeway with it shut down. This bill would criminalize their innocent activity of, driving on the freeway when protesters have shut the freeway down, and carrying your weapon in your vehicle would become criminalized through this bill.
Let law enforcement do their job. The impact is that obviously some folks want to intimidate the protesters. And so this law, by prohibiting open carrying, and ultimately the difference between gross misdemeanor and misdemeanor is important.
People open carry for lots of reasons. And Madam Speaker, what do you consider someone who carries a pistol on their hip or even a long gun? What do you consider that preventive element that the gentleman from the 26th described?
When we were listening to testimony and in the massive amounts of email that I got about this bill, I would say about 95% of it was based on the prohibition against open carry of firearms, and more specifically, the open carry of firearms on the Olympia campus. This bill is not narrowly written. It is much, much more than that. And we need to clarify what it is that we're trying to do.
We could have intent language for this that's narrowly crafted to address the concerns that were raised in testimony, namely people petitioning for redress and grievances, yes, as the member says, in a variety of contexts and locations without intimidation by weapons.
Thank you for watching the Daily Legislative Report by MLTnews, covering the 2021 legislative session.